Yashomati Nandana Rajavarana
Yashomati Nandana Rajavarana
Yashomati, practice makes perfect. Rajavarana
Yashomati Nandana Rajavarana
Gokula Ranjanaka
Gokula Ranjanaka
Gokula Ranjanaka
Gokula Ranjanaka
Gopika Ranjanaka
Gopika Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
You have to make it go as long as the last note in the damn life. Anybody else?
Yes.
Hmm.
And they don't say. That was my, what, a few times a year playing Madonna.
Ogaloka, get used to it.
I haven't played in so many years. I mean,
And this is the solution to that.
You should play more.
I don't even remember the mantras. It's been like 7
Nope.
years.
Madhava Das says he doesn't use any mantras.
Neither does Chidhari.
Huh?
Neither does Chidhari or Madhamangal. And
Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bhangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Mande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svaparantikam Pancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So Goloka, what chapter are we in?
we are in 11th canto,
And the chapter?
13.
Chapter 13, -2.
-2? Oh, 11.
We're in chapter 11 for a bit. And we started looking at Krishna's, as I like the way Bhakti Rasa puts it, when she puts the announcement online, Krishna's description of his devotees. Now I think this is significant. This is something that we need to pay attention to. When we look at these verses that we were looking at the other night, verses in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, the verses in Bhagavad Gita, verses in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, who's describing Krishna's devotees to us? The Lord himself. This is the Lord's perspective on devotees. So, just as we see at the end of the 9th chapter, where Krishna says, Api chet suduracharo bhajate mamananya bhak sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hi saha. That even if someone engages in the worst of activities, not just if he makes a mistake, not just if he's not necessarily the most perfect of personalities, not the most charismatic, most beautiful, most unfailingly kind, and going around hugging everybody. But he says, apichet suduracharo, not just durachara, not just some bad behavior, but sudurachara, really awful stuff. Prabhupada says, even if his behavior is abominable, out of habit, because there are these impressions in the subtle body carried over from previous lifetimes. If his life is dedicated to becoming Krishna conscious, and he's not distracted by other kinds of religion, what do we call them?
We call him a devotee.
No, what were these other processes of religion?
Oh, cheating.
Cheating religion, right? Bhagavatam begins, and Bhagavad Gita ends with an admonition to give up all cheating religion. We've discussed these things from so many angles of vision, but forget it. Forget them all. Flush them. Just take shelter of me exclusively. That's Krishna's teaching Sharanagati at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. Sarva dharman parityaja. Parityaja. Completely give them up. Sarva dharma. All of them. It all sounds good. I mean, that's how he starts, right? With Arjuna. Sounds good. But it's so unworthy. Just, it breaks my heart to hear you say these things. Superficially, it sounds good. Conventionally, it sounds good. Oh, we have to protect the women. Oh, society will fall apart. Oh, so many lives will be lost. This is, yeah, sounds good, but it's not what I want. It's not what I want. And then the Bhagavatam picks up there. Now that you have, for those who have given up all these kaitava dharma. And how does Krishnadas Kaviraj describe kaitava dharma? Dharma artha kama moksha vancha. The aspiration for virtue, material progress, dharma, artha, kama, pleasure, enjoyment, and even liberation. because they're all self-centered. They're all about me, or some idea I have of me, right? So Krishna Das Kaviraj says, this is all cheating religion. When he's talking about this second verse of the Bhagavatam, and the second verse of the Bhagavatam is kind of a thesis statement, right? This is what we're going to be talking about. And this is who the author conceives of as the audience, Dharma Praujita Kaita, someone who's completely given up all other conceptions of religion. Dharma Praujita Kaita Votra, Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam. Nirmatsaranam and Satam. Completely free of envy, and therefore completely pure in heart. Because that's our real contamination. That's Dhritarashtra's contamination. 640 million men had to die, widow their wives, break their mothers' hearts, orphan their children, make their sisters cry. Why? Mamaka Pandavascha, us and them. My party, their party. My church, their church. My boys, his boys. That's selfishness. That's our contamination. And then there's the Draupadi factor. Someone insulted a righteous woman. Therefore, 640 million men had to die in 2.5 weeks. Talk about bloodbath. So this is Krishna talking about his devotees, describing his devotees. And he says, even if they slip up and they do something really awful out of habit or fall into a little bad association or something like that, and old impressions come up to the surface again. And even if they do something abominable, sudurachara, they are to be considered sadhus. Why? He says, Chipram bhavati dharmatma satvachantam nigacchati kamdeya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashati. He says, because of his dedication to Krishna Bhakti, he will become purified. This isn't excusing devotees' bad behavior. So we shouldn't excuse our bad behavior by saying, oh, apichet suduracharo. Kiss my feet. Anyway, that's not our attitude. That's Krishna's attitude. It's like your kid. Your kid does something terrible, and you gotta. He's embarrassed his whole family, embarrassed his species sometimes. You don't stop loving him because he does something stupid. Because he steals the car in the middle of the night and wraps it around a tree. You don't stop loving your kid because of that. Or fails half his courses for the year or something because he's 16, stupid, and just hormonal. You don't stop loving them because of that. It's your kid, and this is Krishna's. This is not a flaw in Krishna's character. What's it called?
An ornament.
An ornament, and what is that ornament?
His kindness.
Partiality.
Huh?
Partiality.
His partiality. Bhaktavatsalya. It's an ornament. These are his people. Remember, what does it mean to be Krishna conscious? I am Krishna's, and Krishna is mine. And that's how Krishna sees it too. Krishna says, so, I am my devotees. He's mine. This is called Shwamba. This is how the cowherds feel about Krishna. He's one of us. He's my buddy. Punk. Oh, he's such a cool little punk. And we have so much fun. And his lunch, so delicious. Oh, let's steal it. Like, keep away. This Vishwambha, this sense of intimacy, it's a sense of identity. We're the same. You and I, we're one. So when Krishna feels like that about his devotees, that's his greatest ornament. That's his best quality. Just like, we have those who are particularly close to us. Especially when I was in family life, it was nearly impossible that this would happen. But if anybody said anything critical about anyone in my family, about my wife or one of my kids, forget it. And I'm not a fun adversary to have. I do have a temper. And I don't always think fast. But sometimes I speak a heck of a lot faster than I think, and I can say and sometimes do some, I'm capable of doing some really awful things. What's her face? Sarah Palin used to, talk about herself being Mama Bear. Don't you do that. And we see that somebody criticizes Srila Prabhupada or our Guru Maharaj. The hackles raise on there. You can see Bhakti Rasa. You can see, Dulal Chandra. You can hear it downstairs. Somebody says something that he perceives as a threat to his spiritual master's institution, and he's a pit bull. He does not let go. Those jaws clamp on, and it's, that's natural. And it's wonderful. So Krishna feels like that about his devotees. So here's how he describes his devotees. And I think it makes sense to take a look at these descriptions once more in these three places, because there's a lot to process. So we can just I'll just real quickly go through these sets of verses. So here, in the Uddhava Gita, you want the Sanskrit? You don't have to do the Sanskrit again.
You can say Sanskrit. It's just nice to hear.
We have a split. Who's the tie-breaking vote there? They're not typing messages or anything. Mm-hmm. It's a passive audience. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Kripalo Rakritataro Hasti Tikshu Sarvadehinam Satyasaro Navadyatma Samasarvo Pakaraha Samasarvo Pakaraha Parakaha Kamayarahata Dhirdanto Mridu Suchir Akinchana Aniho Mitabukshanta Stiramacharano Munihi Apramatto Gabhiratma Dutiman Jitta Sadgunaha Amani Manada Kalyo Maitrakara Mika Kavihi Agyayaivam Gunam Doshan Mayadishtam Apisvakam Dharman Santyajaya Sarvan Bhajeta Susattamaha. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Uddhava, a saintly person, is merciful and never injures others. Even if others are aggressive, he's tolerant and forgiving toward all living entities. His strength and meaning in life come from the truth itself. He's free from all envy and jealousy, and his mind is equal in material happiness and distress. Thus he dedicates his time to work for the welfare of all others. His intelligence is never bewildered by material desires, and he has controlled his senses. His behavior is always pleasing, never harsh, and always exemplary. And he's free from possessiveness. He never endeavors. Now, this is an interesting thing. He's free from possessiveness. That's an interesting way to translate the word akinchana, right? Akinchana, you don't have anything. Doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't have anything. He doesn't need anything. what's that bumper sticker saying? Shucks. Maybe it's from Thich Nhat Hanh or somebody. About not, it doesn't mean you don't possess anything, but nothing possesses you, right? None of your things possess you. So I think that's a really interesting definition of akinchana. Not attached to anything. You know, what was like the old Bob Dylan song, my money comes and goes, it rolls and flows through the holes in my pockets to my toes. Just like we see Srila Prabhupada, devotees would give him expensive watches, Omega watches, and I don't know, Cartier. I mean, I know I've seen him with Omegas sometimes, and other expensive watches. And you know, these watches, they come with expensive bracelets. Sometimes Prabhupada would, you know, he'd accept the watch and then he'd pass it on in a couple of days. Or he'd accept the watch and he'd send someone to the thrifty drugstore to get a Spidell Twist-A-Flex band because it's, you know, $3 watch band because it's comfortable. You know what a Spidell Twist-A-Flex is? Those of us of a certain age, close to 30, remember Spidell Twist-A-Flex watch bands. They're not expensive at all. You get them at the drugstore. They generally look like what they cost, but you could twist them, you know, you could just twist them in and out. You didn't have to worry about a fancy clasp or anything, you know. You could take some sections out and you could make it fit your wrist, and Srila Prabhupada's wrist was quite slender. And even then, they'd probably take all the things out of the Spidell Twist-A-Flex and it would still kind of like flop around on his wrist. But it didn't have, you know, it didn't have a heavy thing, you know, and didn't pinch his skin or the hair on his arm or anything like that. Spidell Twist-A-Flex. I mean, it was really interesting to see, you know, this expensive watch with a $3 watch band from the drugstore. It was not attached. They would give him rings and then he'd give the ring to somebody else after a while. You know, he would give his kurtas away to his, you know, to brahmacharis who needed a kurta. His socks, and he would give his devotees his socks to wear. Oh, you don't have socks. Go in my drawer in the Alamara over there. You know, and you know, take out, you know, a couple pairs of socks. Not at all attached to everything. He was, as he sometimes said, he was the guru of the Americans. And you know, sometimes you'd see him riding in a Rolls. It wasn't our Rolls. We rented it or borrowed it. When we received him in Honolulu in 1970, when he came in August of 1970, the man who owned the Waikiki Wax Museum, really friendly man. The Waikiki merchants generally didn't care for us. They saw us as a nuisance, bothering the tourists, discouraging the tourists or something. He didn't have that attitude at all. For years, he would let us use his bathroom. He would let us use the bathroom in the Waikiki Wax Museum, if that was the most convenient bathroom. Sometimes the people in the Waikiki Theater would let us use, the manager of the Waikiki Theater would let us use that bathroom. The Outrigger Hotel, their bathrooms were public. But with the Wax Museum, you had to go inside. And when Prabhupada came in August of 1970, he offered to let us use his Rolls-Royce convertible with tiger skin print seats. I don't think it was real tiger skin, but kind of, you know, to pick Srila Prabhupada up at the airport. Now, when he came to the temple, he came in Gorsundar's new 1970 Ford pickup truck. Which showed his detachment. Sure, he got picked up in the got picked up in a Rolls Royce, and probably there are pictures of him riding in the back of the Rolls convertible in Honolulu Advertiser in the morning, in the Star Bulletin in the afternoon or something. But when he came to the temple that evening, we didn't have the men's rolls anymore. We gave it back to him, and Gorsundar drove him up there in his pickup truck. And then when he came in '72, Gorsundar bought a '62 Buick or something like that. Comfortable car, but it was, an old car. 10-year-old car. 10-year-old car. So, Prabhupada was detached. When Prabhupada came in his first visit in '74, January 1974, I offered, when he got out of the car, when he got to the temple, I offered obeisances right at his feet. And he was wearing like $5 canvas slip-ons from Tom McCann, and they had holes in them. And I was at once heartbroken and completely won over. I just thought, oh my God, my spirit. And I noticed that his cloth, when the ladies washed his cloth, some of his dhotis and uttariyas had little holes in them. And we actually had to start a fund behind his back. This was in 1974. The devotees started a fund behind his back for his personal maintenance. Because you gave him money, you know where it was going to go. It's going to go into one of his bank accounts, straight to a BBT bank account. So the devotees were collecting money, kind of like back channel kind of a thing behind his back. And you see Guru Maharaj doesn't even own a watch, doesn't wear a watch. And his cloth, just simple cotton cloth, not even kurtas anymore, done with kurtas, just t-shirts. And those shoes, when he puts on his overalls and he goes up to the land, those shoes, he's been wearing those shoes as long as I can remember. And I've been associating with him for 15, 16 years now. Funky old shoes. They still work. So, why bother? He lives quite simply, getting all these nice places, but he's getting these places for the devotees. So the devotees can create community and we can support each other in our pursuit and propagation of Krishna consciousness. Not attached to these things. Prabhupada wasn't even, as much as you could see he was sometimes, not even really, attached to ISKCON. When he incorporated ISKCON, he said, if this doesn't work out, we can unincorporate it. We can disband it. And I remember hearing a story from one of the old Gurukula leaders when we had a Gurukula headmasters conference in Vrindavan in '82. Srila Prabhupada, he was telling us about when the Gurukula was completed, when the building was completed, all of a sudden different leaders started staking out different rooms to use as offices for this project or that, this ISKCON project or that ISKCON project. Prabhupada heard about it and he just shut it down. They were protesting, but Srila Prabhupada, what about this thing? What about that thing? And they said, how are we going to run ISKCON? Prabhupada said, ISKCON, BISKCON, bring boys. So he built a Gurukula for educating boys in Krishna consciousness to make them perfect spiritual leaders. He ran ISKCON out of a suitcase, practically. Pack everything up. You see it. There's probably a checked suitcase. And there's a carry-on for him and a carry-on for his servant, and maybe a bag with prasadam or something like that. Prabhupada would just pack his whole kit and caboodle up, including a Sanskrit dictionary, a pretty fat little thing of Monier Williams, and his Bhagavatam with commentaries of all the acharyas going back to Sridhar Swami. And it was, even Guru Maharaj, sometimes Guru Maharaj travels and it's just carry on. Got 3 sets of cloth, a couple pairs of copins, a couple t-shirts. This time he left his Suchi kit, got out Darya. So we had to scrape up a toothbrush and some toothpaste for him. That's all he wanted. He just needed a toothbrush. And I forgot my shaving kit. We got some tea log for him, and stuff. And it was completely unfazed, completely unperturbed by it. He said, "Oh, I forgot my Suchi kit. Could really, because we had an overnight flight, I could really use a toothbrush." So we got him a toothbrush, we got him some toothpaste, got him some tea log. He was set. That was it. He was set. And a gumsha, and a couple pairs of socks, and his sweatshirt if he's not wearing it. Pretty simple, pretty detached, free from stuff. However, whatever stuff we need for our service, we grab it, So we want a computer that actually works. And if you need a library, well, I had to, as attached as I am to analog books, paper and ink, the feel of the paper and the rustle of the pages and everything, and some place to actually just write an annotation and margin and all that stuff. I had to get something to read books in electronic format because I don't have a home anymore. How do I get all those books in one place? Well, I have to bite the bullet and do it digitally. As much less fun as that might be for me. So I just find that a really interesting translation of akinchana. He's not possessive, Stuff comes, stuff goes. That's the way it is. That's the way the world is. He never endeavors in ordinary worldly activities, and he strictly controls his eating. He therefore always remains peaceful and steady. A saintly person is thoughtful and accepts me as his only shelter. Such a person is very cautious in the execution of his duties, and he's never subject to the superficial transformations, because he is steady and noble, even in a distressing situation. He has conquered over the 6 material qualities, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. He's free from all desire for prestige and offers honor to others. He is expert in reviving others' Krishna consciousness, and he therefore never cheats anyone. Rather, he is a well-wishing friend to all, being most merciful. Such a saintly person must be considered the most learned of men. He perfectly understands that the ordinary religious duties prescribed by me in the various Vedic scriptures possess favorable qualities that purify the performer, and he knows that neglect of such duties constitutes a discrepancy in one's life. Having taken shelter, complete shelter, at my lotus feet, however, a saintly person ultimately renounces such ordinary religious duties and worships me alone. He doesn't need to neglect them unless they get in the way of his service. He didn't have anything to do with it. Whatever. It's like one of our friends posted something today from Hari Bhakti Vilas. Never eat eggplant. It's really awful. It's a bad, bad thing. Krishna doesn't like eggplant. Don't offer him eggplant. So we don't offer eggplant. It's bad, bad, bad. Oh, besides, all the nightshades, they're toxic and this and that and this and that. My comment, my spiritual master offered eggplant. I watched him make a preparation with eggplant, tomatoes, neither of which is native to India, eggplant, tomatoes, and sour cream. Yeah, look in the Veda base and see what it says about buying sour cream at the store. And there are people who will tell you that. Don't buy sour cream at the store. Well, yeah, you got to be careful. Some sour cream has gelatin in it. Get Daisy, or there's a couple other really, they're just kind of simple things, You want to make something really nice for Krishna, it's sour cream with maybe a little carrageenan in or something like that, whatever. Baked. I mean, how un-Vedic can you get? And oh my gosh, it was so good, it just blows the top off your head, just a taste. He supervised a feast because I've told this story. Well, I was about to say too many times, but I don't know if that's possible. It's just so cool. He was staying at the Ilikai Hotel in Waikiki. This was his visit in January of 1974. This is after all the temples in the islands had been closed, and we were striving to kind of reestablish his society in the Hawaiian Islands. So we were just starting. We had this temple, wasn't even central to town. It was just someplace where we could get a house that they would rent, and the landlord didn't mind that we had 35 people living in a 6-bedroom house or something, Our neighbors hated it though. The neighbors called the cops on us every time we had a kirtan, and the cops would come and knock on the door and say, "I'm really sorry, but the neighbors called again." And then one morning, one cop showed up and said, "I'm really sorry to say this, but the captain says that the next time we get a call, we have to bring somebody back with us." So we went downstairs and we had a meeting to decide who would be arrested for who was disturbing the peace or something like that. We decided on me because my name was on the lease, and I was the head pujari. I didn't have any authority over anybody. I couldn't even get anybody to do their scheduled deity service, So, so I went down. I went down to the station. They gave me $25 for bail, and I stuck it in my bead bag. And I went down to the gym. My poor wife, we've been married maybe almost a year. My wife's, "Oh, I want to go too." And the cop looked at it and he said, "Sure, if you have $25, you can come." But somehow or other, by Krishna's arrangement, he asked for this one Sunday. He was there for maybe 3-4 weeks. Quite a long stay because he was trying to encourage us in getting things going. Maybe it was a couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks, something like that. So one of the Sundays, he asked for a plate from of the prasadam from the Sunday feast, and somehow or other, by Krishna's arrangement, pretty much everything was just awful. The rice was half cooked. The laddu was hardly toasted at all. It was bad, and he was furious. We can't serve this to our guests, even in the park, which is where we were having a feast at the time, because the temple was not central. It was like out of town, back in the valley. So the next morning after class, one of Prabhupada's party, or maybe it was Sudama Maharaj, maybe it was the temple president, says, "Srila Prabhupada has an announcement to make." And Prabhupada said, "This coming Sunday, we will have our Sunday love feast here at the temple. I will personally cook and distribute." So he organized a feast, and he supervised every preparation. He got every preparation started. He had a team of 2 devotees on each prep. Bali Mardan and I were kachoris. And it was chickpea kachoris. I wish I could remember the recipe. I'm really good. And Prabhupada stayed with each team until he was certain we were going to make them just the way he was making them. He showed us how, and he watched us, and if we didn't get it, then he'd show us again, and then he'd go work with the next team. And there was one preparation he fixed himself, and it was a baked eggplant, tomato, and sour cream preparation. And you see pictures of Prabhupada cutting the tomatoes. Somebody posted a picture of him. This is Ulises in Mexico, our friend in Mexico, Ulises Guerrero. He's very Vedic, Ulises. He's a really cool guy. He's really into all this Vedic stuff. So, you know, he pulled out this Hari Bhakti Vilas thing, and I said, well, yeah, my spiritual master, you know, I actually watched him make this amazing preparation. It was a baked preparation with eggplant, tomatoes, and sour cream. It was like, no, 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 you know. And it was amazing. And when Srila Prabhupada came through the room and saw how the devotees were enjoying the prasadam he had prepared for them, he was beaming. It was like the sun. And I was so struck by that, by his pleasure at seeing how the devotees were happy taking prasadam, that I just called out, Chatur Vidha Shri Bhagavat Prasado Swadam Hari Bhakti Samha. And he smiled at me. Thank you. Wonderful. So all these conventional religious duties, he's just not attached to them. He understands these things are beneficial. We don't need them. They're good, they're nice, and let's use them to the extent that they're helpful. Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Praja. He's thus considered to be the best among all living entities. And then there are the verses in Bhagavad Gita. I'll just read the English. Total compromise.
Don't cover your.
Sanskrit from the Bhagavatam for Goloka in English for Bhakti Rasa, and the clock, and whoever we have online. The Lord of Sri said, O son of Pandu, one who does not like or dislike the presence or absence of illumination, activity, or delusion, he's not jazzed by them and he's not freaked out by them. Illumination, activity, delusion, he's completely indifferent. Who is seated as though indifferent, undisturbed by the gunas, thinking only the gunas are working here, and who thus remains steady, to whom happiness and sorrow are equal, who dwells in the self, to whom a lump of earth, a stone, and gold are the same, except for their obvious differences in utility. They're all good. A lump of earth is good, a stone is good, gold is good. They have different uses. Oh, a nice stone, another nice stone that we can use for building the temple wall. And some earth that we can use to make mud and hold the stones together. Who regards equally the desirable and undesirable, who's steadfast, to whom blame and praise are equal, to whom honor and dishonor are the same, and who treats alike friend and foe, and who has renounced all material undertakings. Such a person is said to have transcended the gunas. And then we've got Chaitanya Charitamrita. We've got the list that Krishnadas Kaviraj has Mahaprabhu reciting in Bengali, and then we've got the verse from the Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj describing the devotees. So he introduces it again by saying, a Vaishnava is one who has developed all the transcendental qualities. All the good qualities of Krishna gradually develop in Krishna's devotees. And then he cites a Bhagavatam verse. I think this is King Rishabdev. In one who has unflinching faith, a devotional faith in Krishna, all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods are consistently manifest. Oh, maybe it's Prahlad Maharaj. This is Prahlad Maharaj, I'm sorry. However, he who has no devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no good qualifications, because he's engaged by material concoction and material existence, which is the external feature of the Lord. Of course, my friend Urmila shared a excerpt from one of Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion talks in Kartika 72 at Radha Damodar, in the courtyard of the Radha Damodar temple. And he said, he's citing a verse from the Bhagavatam where Narada Muni says, if you're Krishna conscious, even the external energy is non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah. So then he says, all these transcendental qualities are the characteristics of pure Vaishnavas, and they cannot be fully explained, but I shall try to point out some of the important ones. And then he says, devotees are always merciful, humble, truthful, equal to all, faultless, magnanimous, mild, and clean. They are without material possessions, without possessiveness. And they perform welfare work for everyone, pada upakar. They're peaceful surrender to Krishna and desireless. They are non-different to material acquisitions and are fixed in devotional service. They completely control the 6 bad qualities, lust, anger, greed, and so forth. They eat only as much as required, mitabuk. Mitabuk means you eat a little bit, you eat what you need. You know, you don't, you know, there's a passage, I think it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, says that if you run here and there trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue, you can never get love for Krishna. So mitabuk means you eat what you need. For some people, that's a lot, and for other people, that's not so much. And we see when we were young, we could eat enormous amounts of food and not put on, and still lose weight. Right? I mean, we would have mounds of prasadam sometimes. There were days, I remember this in 1970, we got our vegetables in, well, for a while we got them from the dumpster behind the Manoa Valley Safeway. And then we made arrangements with some of the produce wholesalers to, we would hit up the 55-gallon drums that the pig farmers had left before the big farmers, just before the big farmers came through. If it was, you know, we went and we'd go through and we'd pick out a few things that were usable. And we would, you know, we wouldn't certainly leave enough so that the big farmers wouldn't suspect anything, because we didn't want to get these people were not being, they were, I mean, they'd made an arrangement with these farmers, probably a few bucks, you know, a week. For the stuff that was going to get thrown out anyway, we ended up going to the landfill, and so we go to the pigs. Reuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, right? But some of them were kind enough that they would let us, you know, we knew the pig farmer's schedule, and we'd get there a couple hours before the pig farmer. We'd go through it and find what was nice. But I remember that even though we didn't have, oh, and this is the first time I ever had artichokes. There were artichokes rescued from the dumpster behind the Manoa Valley Safeway in 1970. I'd never had artichokes as a kid. We didn't, you know, my mom was from Illinois, my dad was from the Central Coast of California. We didn't eat artichokes. And they tried to like give us more sophisticated meals sometimes, international foods or something like that. But I never had artichokes until I moved into the Hare Krishna temple. But there were artichokes that were rescued from the bottom of the dumpster at the Manoa Valley Safeway. But I remember sometimes that Gaurasundar and Govindadasi would have the brahmacharis just making chapatis. And they'd be just cranking out chapatis up in the kitchen. And when we finished the chapatis that we had, we'd go up and get a couple more hot chapatis right off the fire, dripping with butter. And we were all like, I was like 115 pounds or something like that, you know, because we were always working. We were always out on some kirtan, or we were always doing, you know, some service around the temple. Oh, and we were like, I was 22. And now, you know, I can't eat, you know, I could probably put that stuff away, but I'd get indigestion, and I'd have to get dhotis with elastic waists or something like that. Eats only as much as required, and they're not inebriated. They're respectful, grave, compassionate, and without false prestige. They're friendly, poetic, expert, and silent. And then, again, to back it up, he cites third canto of the Bhagavatam, Lord Kapila Dev. Devotees are always tolerant, forbearing, and very merciful. They are the well-wishers of every living entity. They follow the scriptural injunctions, and because they have no enemies, they're very peaceful. These are the decorations of the devotees. So Krishna loves his devotees, and he sees all these things in the devotees' hearts. So it behooves us to try to relate to the devotees in the same loving way that Krishna does, and see if we, if we can see these things in the devotees' hearts. Our default as conditioned souls is to find fault, especially when pointing another's fault out makes me feel like I'm bigger. That's just kind of, that's our default setting. That's just kind of how we fall naturally. But the devotees' default setting is to always, they're gunagrahi. They're always looking for the good qualities in others. So that's how Krishna sees his devotees. So we can think about, how does Krishna see his devotees? How do I see his devotees? And then work on kind of reconciling our setting, kind of resetting ourselves so that we can see things a little more like Krishna. I'll tell one more story. I've told this story. I can't tell this story too many times. This godbrother, Aniruddha, senior godbrother from New York, joined in '68 and was well known for his service in the kitchen. He could also be a bit of a crab, a bit of a nag, especially when it came to kitchen stuff. And when Srila Prabhupada came in '74, maybe in the middle of the year, I don't remember if Aniruddha was there when Prabhupada was here, visited in January, but when Prabhupada came in July, Aniruddha was living in Honolulu, and he'd given up his sadhana. He chanted, but he was living outside, and he had his own thing going on. And but he would come to the temple. He would come to the temple, and he would chide the devotees and working in the kitchen, especially because the standard needed to be raised. And and we tolerated him, first of all because he was right, second of all because he was Aniruddha. And but everybody knew Aniruddha wasn't up to the standard himself right now. But we know Prabhupada loves him, and we like him too. So we'll just kind of put up with it and crab a little bit, under our breath. And when Srila Prabhupada left, I actually went to the airport with him. I was the head pujari, which meant I had to stay back with the deities whenever anything happened. Morning walks, darshans at wherever Prabhupada was staying. We were the ones who got to stay back at the temple. And so we had to serve in separation. But when he left this morning, this was in July, might have been July 4th, '74, I grabbed my car towels. I looked at my wife and I apologized. I said, I'm sorry. I got to go to the airport. I hate to do this to you, but I can't stand it anymore. So I went to the airport, and I actually got to lead the kirtan, walking out to the terminal, because we were just walking out with Prabhupada. And he looked at us and he said, no kirtan. And everybody's like, oh. So I just started singing Gurvashtakam and led a Hare Krishna kirtan. So then we kept some other devotees kept the kirtan going, and a few of us went into the terminal with Srila Prabhupada. And we were sitting there. He was sitting up on a seat, and the rest of us were sitting on the floor at his feet. And Satsarup Maharaj was reading newspaper clippings about ISKCON from around the world. And all of a sudden, Srila Prabhupada looked up and he said, I hear Aniruddha is here in Hawaii, but he hasn't come to see me. I said, well, he's probably embarrassed because he's not doing so well, fallen down. And then someone else said, oh, But he's here at the airport. He's with the kirtan party outside on the sidewalk. So there's no difficulty. He may come inside. So someone went out and told Aniruddha Prabhupada was asking about him. Aniruddha said, nah. So they came in and they said, well, Prabhupada Aniruddha, he's happy outside. You do not understand. You do not understand. He may come inside. There is no difficulty. So he scurried out, brought Aniruddha back in. Aniruddha was wearing cut-off jeans, a T-shirt, flip-flops. He had one of those ammo bag, shoulder bag thingies, Israeli army, whatever, there's something like that, and an earring, and maybe 3 inches of his curly hair. And he approached Srila Prabhupada, folded his hands in pranams, and Srila Prabhupada said, so Aniruddha, how are you? And Aniruddha blushed. He says, actually, Prabhupada, not so good. And then Prabhupada motioned to Aniruddha to sit next to him on a seat. And Aniruddha, no, that's okay. And Prabhupada said, no, it is all right. Okay? Because Aniruddha looked at us, we're all on the floor, and Prabhupada made him sit next to him on the seat. So they exchanged small talk for a couple of minutes. And then Srila Prabhupada looked at us and said, in Los Angeles Temple, he is the beginning. And that was it. Anybody who had any misgivings, had any problems with whatever difficulty Aniruddha was going through at the moment, you can forget it, boys and girls. The important thing is he's done some service for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his spiritual master. That's the real thing. The other stuff comes and goes. That's how Krishna sees his devotee. I mean, I sat there and I just thought, I was so happy because I could just see how everybody was uncomfortable for Aniruddha. And my wife and I hung out with Aniruddha. We would sometimes hang out with him at the beach. We'd become friends with him. And we were uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable how everybody was uncomfortable for Aniruddha. And it was like this revolution in my mind. I just thought, oh, it's okay to like Aniruddha. He's a devotee after all, So, I saw this is how Srila Prabhupada sees the devotees. This is how Krishna sees his devotees. And I was so gratified to hear later. I told, I think I wrote that story up on the internet after Aniruddha passed away, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. And some devotees from Honolulu wrote me and they said, Aniruddha's told the same story. And I said, yes, he didn't miss it, And so this is an important thing. We can talk about different clumps of these as we, over the next week or so. But I just wanted to make this point. This is how Krishna sees his devotees. Therefore, api chet surura charo bhajate mamananyabhak sadhureva. And I think it's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur who writes in one of his commentary on this verse or the next verse. Why should you see him as a sadhu? After all, he's doing something awful. Because I say so. Because that's how I see him. Something like that. Okay. For a class that wasn't going to happen, it went a little long. Anybody have anything to add or any questions? Yes. Goloka.
Yeah.
Das.
I've never really had much in the way of doubts of anything, but one of the things that I find really hard to grasp is accepting the devotees who are abominable, And I myself am quite an abominable person, but I'm talking about the ones who have, we know for a fact they have done these horrible things. And, yes, they might have been kicked out of the community for a while, but then they come back later on. And I understand, that Krishna can purify anyone's heart, but for myself, I can't see it,
Well, the thing is, And this is a discussion that's come up in our community a few times over, over the last couple of years. The thing is, what Krishna is pointing out here in verses 30 and 31 of the 9th chapter is Bhakti Devi's power. The Krishna's Swarup Shakti is so much more powerful than his Maya Shakti. And she can overcome all these things. Bhakti Devi picks you, following the lead of the preaching devotees. And it's pretty much game over. Just a matter of time. And so there are bumps along the way. And some of them are big bumps. Some of them, sometimes you fall over a cliff. But is Wile E. Coyote ever really killed when he falls over the cliff, when the safe falls on him, when the dynamite blows up in his face? No. So neither is Krishna's devotee. Krishna tells Arjuna, you declare it boldly. Nobody's going to buy it if I say it. But if you say it, because you're a noble person, so you declare it boldly, my devotee is never vanquished. My devotee is never vanquished. There might be a glitch here and there. It may be a big glitch. If someone commits Vaishnava aparadh, that can stop his or her progress. And not just stunt his progress, sometimes, set them back. But bhakti is so powerful that I saw it so often with Srila Prabhupada. As soon as someone showed any contrition for horrible things, he forgot it and never mentioned it again. Never mentioned it again. One devotee, sannyasi, GBC, gave up his service, and he ended up living out in the country on Maui for a couple of years. And I got to know him a little bit on Maui, and then when he kind of came back, he went to see Srila Prabhupada in the fall of 1977 in Vrindavan. And he came back. He spent some time in Honolulu. He lived right next door to us, rented a house right next door to where we were living. So I got to know him a little bit. And, when he left, one of the leaders was calling temples all over North America. Watch out for so-and-so, Maharaj. If he shows up in your temple, you don't let him give class. Don't, he's given up his post as a GBC. He's given up his sannyas. Don't. So, and when Srila Prabhupada heard about it, he called that devotee to him. His lip was trembling. He was so furious. He said, "You've made it impossible for him to come back." I was just trying to protect, the movement, Prabhupada. Yes, and you've made it impossible for him to come back. Bhakti is so powerful. She trumps everything else. It's that simple. So we need to become purified to the extent that we actually can understand this. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's it's not because we have these ideas, and sometimes we see the effects of these things on other devotees, how it hurts their faith, and we're just and we harbor resentment because of that, anger toward these devotees. But I'll tell you, going all the way back to 1968, all the way to the very end, as soon as somebody showed a little contrition, Srila Prabhupada completely forgot. This sannyasi came to see Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan, shaved his head. He had long hair, shaved his head, put on a dhoti, tilak, went to see Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada was crying. Another leader, a good friend of mine, same thing. went to see Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan at the, in the fall of 77. Srila Prabhupada was rubbing their heads with tears running down his eyes, so happy to see them. All he wanted was for us to be happy in Krishna consciousness. And when we made that effort, he responded so powerfully. So, and some of these things that these devotees did were pretty heavy. Things they said were pretty heavy, including 4 sannyasis, new sannyasis, preaching that Prabhupada was Krishna, Prabhupada was God in 1970. Prabhupada kicked them out. Told them, you stay away from my temples. You're sannyasis, you just travel and preach. You just stay away from my temples and the other devotees. And as soon as each one of them showed a little contrition, that was it. You never heard Prabhupada mention it again. Ever. We're still talking about it 45 years later. Prabhupada never mentioned it again. Okay. Thank you so much for your indulgence. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Ki jai.